Hi guys, how's it going? Ivano here with a new video in our Introduction to PvP series, and today we are talking about how to win arenas. Now the objective of an arena is pretty simple and is to kill the enemy team before they kill you. So as opposed to war zones, there are no nodes to right click, no hardball to carry, it's a good old-fashioned fist fight. So in order to create an advantage, what we want to do is we want to be the team that gets the first kill. Because if you get a kill, now the fight is a 4v3, and obviously one player on the enemy team cannot do damage, cannot use their taunts or their stuns, so that's an advantage for you. In an arena, it is really important that you do get this first kill, because in roughly 99% of all the arenas that I played, the team that gets the first kill will win the round. So what's the best way to get that all-important first kill? Well, let's look at this example. We have 4 players on the yellow team and 4 players on the purple team, and everyone on the yellow team is targeting a different player on the purple team. So even if the yellow team are all really great DPS players and everyone is doing 20k DPS, it will take them 20 seconds to get that all-important first kill. And that's only if the enemy team does not use any defensive stuns, whatever. Now let's look at this example. Here, you and all of your teammates on the yellow team are jumping on one of the enemies and trying to blow them up instantly. This is called focusing, and it's typically a better strategy because if you have 4 players doing 20k DPS each and attacking one enemy, then it will take them only 5 seconds to get the kill. So this is obviously a very simplified example, but it is the general idea of how you want to play arenas. And it actually leads us into the first rule for winning more arenas, which is pick 2 kill targets. Okay, why 2 targets, you might ask? Well, that's because after you kill the first target, your team needs to know what to do next. Because, even though it's 99%, the game is not over 100% yet. So you want to have a second target called out. Or think about what happens if the first target uses a combat reset and vanishes from the fight. Now you have your second target that you are going to try to kill. So that's a good plan B in case your plan A doesn't exactly work out. 3 targets, in my experience, usually confuse people. So I would go with picking 2 kill targets before the fight. But how do you know which targets are good kill targets and which ones are bad? Well, there are some general rules that I've tried to break down. For example, it is good to target enemies that are a threat to your team. Think about if the enemy team has a PowerTech, especially if they're advanced prototype, they have crazy burst. So you don't want to let them go crazy and blow up your healer or something. So that would be the first factor that goes into what makes a good target. The second factor is, it is good to target someone who is easy to kill. Simple enough, right? You can turn that around and say that, for example, an assassin in an arena usually will run the 2 cloaks tactical. And that means they can reset the fight by vanishing out twice. So they kind of have 3 health bars and are really hard to kill. And if that happens, then your plan is ruined. So an assassin is typically not the best kill target for an arena. Or, to say it more general, classes with strong defensives and especially classes with combat resets are bad first targets for arena. So putting these 2 concepts together, here is a matrix of good and bad targets for arena. So on the one axis, you will have classes that are hard to kill. Over here, the classes that are a little bit easier to kill. And then on the other axis, you will have classes that are a big threat to your team. Down here, the classes that are a lower threat. So of course, this is a little bit simplistic, and in no way is this like a perfect order of classes or a tier list. I might make a tier list for Arena at some point if people want to see that, but I think this has been my experience, and this is in general, I think, a good order or a good list to go by. So following the logic that we have set out earlier, on the top right corner, we have PowerTechs and Juggernauts. Both of them are big threats, because if you let a PT go crazy, he will definitely one-shot someone. If you let a Juggernaut go crazy, they might be Vengeance spec, and then they might just one-shot your whole team. On the other hand, mercenaries are typically not a big threat because their DPS is just not as crazy. And then the second dimension will be how easy a class is to kill. Juggernauts, for example, don't have any way to escape from combat. They can obviously not vanish. And while they can heal themselves to full, that's really the only thing they have in terms of strong defensives. So if you simply pump enough damage into them, then they will die, and there's not much they can do about it. On the other hand, we already talked about assassins. They have 3 lives. Sorcerers with Phase Walk and Barrier also have 3 lives. And operatives in general are just incredibly hard to kill in this patch in general. So they are typically more on this quadrant over here. Now, putting this together, what does it mean? Obviously, if a class is a big threat, you would like to focus them. And if a class is easy to kill, then you would also like to focus them. And that means that the classes that are over here on the top right corner, so PowerTechs and Juggernauts, are the best first targets for Arena. Classes down here, which are easy to kill, but are rather low threat, would be a good second target. This would be snipers, right? And by no means does it mean that all sniper specs are low threat. Engineering, for example, is a big threat, but they are still relatively easy to kill. Of course, there are sniper specs that excel at, phase walking and then just rolling 3 times and just running away. They can be rather hard to lock down, but from my experience, most snipers are still pretty easy to kill. So I would classify them as typically in this category of still a good first target. Then assassins, sorcerers, and operatives, while they are high damage threats and you would like to kill them, it is not easy to do so. So sometimes you can sneak a kill on an unsuspecting assassin or even a sorcerer that fails their bubble, but it wouldn't be my plan A because it's not going to be very reliable. So they are okay targets if there's nothing else. If there are no PTs, Jugs, or snipers on the enemy team, for sure pick one of those, but it will not be the go-to plan. And then mercenaries and marauders, they are not the biggest damage threats in the current patch for arenas. So, you might as well just let them do their thing. And they are quite hard to kill. Marauders, they have one of the best sets of defensive cooldowns in the game. Of course, they can also stealth out, run away, heal to full. So they're not that easy to kill. And for mercenaries, the same is true pretty much. If they decide to spec into it, they will have Reflect, they will have Super Kolto, they will have their energy shield with the healing stacks. So they can tank something like 1.2 million damage before they finally keel over. So not a great target to focus. But just another note on this little matrix that I tried to draw up here. Obviously, before the round, you will, in most cases, not know exactly which combat style your opponents are running. You can typically only see whether they are DPS, heal, or tank. So these are some general rules. If people are interested, I might make some more detailed guides on this one later. But for starters, I think this is a pretty good basis from which to pick a first target from. Okay, so once you've picked your 2 kill targets, next step is that you want to communicate with your teammates. So once we kind of figured out for ourselves who we want to kill, the next thing you would do is just type in chat, hey, let's kill that PowerTech first, and then afterwards go on the Guardian. But that's not the only thing you can do to communicate. For example, even after you die in an arena, you can still type in chat and you can use that to tell your teammates that you just saw an assassin vanish and he is now healing up behind this pillar over there. You can also use target markers to communicate with your teammates, even if you're dead, which can be helpful to sometimes close out an arena. You can focus on someone that just used the big defensive and then mark them with crosshairs, and that can sometimes help your teammates. Also, in general, target markers are good to be used even if you're still alive. Mark someone with lightsaber as the second target and with crosshairs as the first target. This is always very good to pick out your kill targets in what can be a busy and hectic environment of an arena. Rule number 3 for winning more arenas would be knowing where you want to fight. So this would be something like if you're playing a melee class and the enemy team has a lot of knockbacks, you don't want to fight upstairs in orbital station, for example, because if the enemy are smart and they use their knockbacks, you'll be knocked down where they can attack you, but you cannot retaliate. It might also mean that if you are playing a ranged dot class and the enemy has a lot of PowerTechs and Juggernauts, You don't want to fight them in the open space in Corellia Square, where you can get easily pulled or leapt to, so stay close to the LOS boxes, for example. Rule number 4 for winning more arenas is to get a good opener. Now, how to do this is of course class specific, and I want to talk more about general principles in this video. But in general, a good opener means that you put pressure on the enemy, you force them to fight on your terms. So this can mean pulling a sorcerer into the middle of your team, forcing them to use bubble, or even just forcing their team to fight downstairs when they actually wanted to fight up. It also means knowing your own game plan and what you need to do in order to win, as well as thinking about the enemy team's game plan and trying to stop whatever they want to do. So, for example, if you know that since you're playing PowerTech, you are very likely to be the enemy team's first kill target, and then don't run in and give them an easy opener, but stay back, let your team open on them, and then join the fight later. Especially as the first target, your job is oftentimes just to stay alive and make the enemies chase you while your team does the same. So you kind of have 2 3v1s ongoing, and as first target, your job is to hopefully survive longer than the enemy kill target. Tip number 5 is support your teammates. If you can, it's really good to support your teammates with heals, stuns, taunts, grenades, pulls, or even just buffs. Predation comes to mind if you're playing Marauder. Every class has something that they can do to support a teammate. Obviously, you don't want to go too much out of your way with this. Still, the main goal is to focus on your kill target first. But if you can, then it's really good to peel for your teammates. Because if you can keep them alive a little bit longer and turn the fight into 4v3, then it's usually a sure win. And for the love of guard, if you're playing tank, you need to put it on your teammate and swap it during the match. So if you're one of those tanks that simply puts guard onto your healer before the match and then never swaps it around, even though your PowerTech might be screaming at 10% HP, then you're really trolling. So if you're a tank, you're a support class, please make sure that you swap the guard to whoever needs it in that moment. Finally, a little bonus tip if you're playing against tank or heal. If you recall the matrix of good targets in the beginning, you might have noticed that I didn't mention tanks or heals at all. And that is because typically they make bad first targets. Why is that? Well, it's usually because tanks and healers are hard to kill, and they are also relatively low threat. Exceptions apply, of course, but the Sorc heal is not going to one-shot you in the opener. So in general, you don't want to target enemy healers first, but you definitely never want to target the enemy tank first. It's a much better game plan in general to take out the enemy DPS, and then the game is pretty much won, even if it takes until the assets spawn at the end of the round. However, it can be okay to have the healer as a second target, because then you can interrupt them, put them under pressure, which makes it so they don't have the time to heal up their teammates, which is going to be your primary kill target. So if the enemy team has a guard, then you typically don't want to keep attacking into it. Guard makes it so you do 5% less damage to whoever has the guard, and then also 50% of your damage gets transferred to the tank. So it is really hard to kill someone through guard. That's not to say that you can never do it. If someone is at 5%, for sure, finish them off even through guard. But in general, if you're playing versus a tank, you want to pick 2 targets and then swap to whoever is not guarded. So let's say you are playing against an assassin tank, a PT, and a Juggernaut. Your kill targets are going to be the PT and the Juggernaut. And for example, you open on the Juggernaut first, but then he gets guard from his tank. So you're swapping and now trying to kill the PowerTech. The tank cannot guard 2 people at once, so you want to try to kill them both, but obviously focus on the one that does not currently have guard. That's it for today, guys. Hopefully this little guide helped you. If it did, please remember to leave a like on the video. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more guides of this sort. And if you haven't done so already, please remember to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.